This is Our Time on Freedom. I'm Mikhail Baranov. Hello. Russia launched 9 Iskander-M ballistic missiles and 62 drones at Ukraine overnight Saturday. About 40 of the drones were Shahids, according to the Ukrainian Air Force. Ukrainian forces neutralized 50 UAVs in 4 missiles. There were confirmed hits. At 11 locations, and at 4 more, debris from downed Russian aerial targets fell. One rescuer was killed and another injured as a result of a missile strike on the Sinelnikov district of the Dnipropetrovsk region. Russia launched a second strike while firefighters were extinguishing the blaze at the site of the previous hit. It is also reported that a local resident was killed and 7 more people were injured. 2 fire and rescue vehicles, residential buildings, and shops were damaged. Last night, Russian occupiers attacked Kyiv and its suburbs for almost an hour. The Russians dropped 6 aerial bombs and also launched 17 drones. In the regional center, 5 civilian enterprises were damaged. In the city of Lazova, the railway infrastructure was attacked, a power line was cut, and about 25,000 subscribers were left without electricity. In the Kyiv district, an energy facility was damaged. According to the Kharkiv military administration, there were no casualties. Restoration work is ongoing. 2 people were killed and 13 were injured. These are the consequences of the morning missile attack on Kiev, according to the State Emergency Service. Rescuers eliminated the aftermath at sites in 3 districts of the Ukrainian capital. A warehouse was destroyed, and houses in non-residential buildings were damaged. A kindergarten was affected. Details of the Russian strike on Kiev in the report by Andriy Mitrenko.
The missile that hit the kindergarten in one of the capital's districts created a large crater. The projectile fell near the children's playground. Now, the area is covered with shards of window glass. Part of the building is destroyed. The childcare facility will have to be temporarily closed for repairs.
We never expected something like this would hit us. It's good that everyone is alive, that people made it. There was no one in the kindergarten. Well, the security guard is alive, so that's something. We got lucky. As long as the war goes on, it doesn't look like it's stopping anytime soon. Every day, there are air raid alerts. The children run into the shelter. Both the little ones and the older kids. An alert goes off. We take everyone there.
The entrances of apartment buildings closest to the damaged kindergarten were left almost completely without windows. Residents are helping utility workers clean up broken glass and pieces of siding. Locals say this neighborhood has been hit by Russian occupiers more than once already.
At night, I was thrown up from the couch. At first, I didn't understand what was happening. There was a terrifying explosion. Then it seemed to get quiet. I didn't turn on the lights right away, because a couple of months ago, there were several explosions in a row like this. I got up and went to the kitchen. The wind was blowing. I went out to the balcony. On the balcony, the glass had shattered too.
As soon as the bang went off, I ran to the window and saw something flying through the air. But it flew off somewhere in the direction of the Polytechnic Institute. Then the police arrived at that building around 4:10. They were called to unlock a door, to free someone. Such misfortune.
Nevertheless, people are trying to return to their usual way of life. A small cafe in one of the damaged buildings is already open and taking orders since early morning. The staff say that customers themselves called to check if everything was okay.
Damaged doors, shutters that were supposed to close here, and a window on that side. But basically, we're still working somehow, even with all this. We're working. The work process goes on under these conditions, unfortunately. There were orders from yesterday that still need to be filled.
The traditional Saturday market also opened, despite being located near warehouse facilities that were heavily damaged by the morning shelling. Although clouds of smoke and the constant noise of rescue equipment are making their mark.
It's very hard. People are starting to come out, but the air is heavy. You can see there aren't that many people. Scared or not, you still have to go out. We live one day at a time.
They want to get back at them for what's happening here. It's like this every night. You get used to it, one way or another. No matter where you go, it's the same thing. You can see drones out the window.
The morning ballistic attack on Kiev lasted only about 15 minutes, but that was enough time to cause significant damage. According to rescuers, strikes were recorded in 3 districts of the capital. Several dozen citizens contacted law enforcement to report property damage.
Almost every attack by Russian occupiers against peaceful Ukrainians is a combined strike with ballistic missiles, President Volodymyr Zelenskyy stated. He emphasized that since the beginning of this year alone, Russia has launched at least 770 ballistic missiles at Ukraine, and more than 50 Kinzhal missiles. The head of the Ukrainian state called on partners to help strengthen Ukraine's air shield.
It is precisely because of such attacks that we pay special attention to Patriot systems to protect our cities from this horror. It is very important that partners who have the capability implement what we have discussed in recent days. No country should be left alone in the face of such evil. Cooperation must continue. Everything can be done. Our partners have the necessary systems, and they can already help defend Ukraine right now. America, Europe, countries. The G7 can help ensure that such strikes no longer threaten lives. Russian ballistic missiles require a response from strong nations working together in real cooperation to protect lives. Volodymyr Zelenskyy, President of Ukraine, on Telegram.
Sufficient range will make it possible to deprive Russia of its means of terror right at the places where they are produced and launched. This was stated by the head of the Ukrainian Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Andriy Sybiha. He emphasized that Russian terror can and must be stopped through collective action, increased sanctions pressure, as well as strengthening Ukraine's energy support and defense capabilities. Very soon, Ukraine will receive a new solution to counter Russian KABs. We're talking about a bomb hunter. It is being developed jointly with NATO, according to the Ukrainian Ministry of Defence. A comprehensive technical solution was recently implemented in France. The system includes software using artificial intelligence and an interceptor drone. The tests were conducted under poor weather conditions. A simulated enemy target was identified, tracked, and captured by a radar equipped with an advanced sensor system. After that, thanks to the AI-based software, the interceptor drone engaged the target along a pre-calculated trajectory. And this is according to the Ukrainian Ministry of Defence. The armed forces of Ukraine have liberated Sukhetske in the Donetsk region. This village is located near Pokrovsk. The operation was carried out by units of the 82nd Separate Air Assault Bukovinian Brigade of the Ukrainian Armed Forces. The soldiers reported that during the assault, they engaged in a fierce battle with an enemy force of more than 60 people. Most of the occupiers were eliminated. The rest were taken prisoner. And the Ukrainian flag was raised over the settlement. 141 combat engagements were recorded on the front line over the past day. According to the General Staff of the Ukrainian Armed Forces, Russian occupiers have resumed their attacks in the North Slobozansky, Kursk, and also Kramatorsk directions. But all their attempts to break through the Ukrainian defense were unsuccessful. Just like in other sections of the front line, 10 Russian assaults were repelled at the Lyman bridgehead. 11 at the Konstantinivka direction, 14 at the southern Slobozansky, and another 22 at the Oleksandrivka direction. And more than 50 attacks by the invaders. Ukrainian defense forces repelled them in the Pokrovsk direction.
Today, our assault troops, and let me remind you, this is also the area of responsibility of the Azov Corps, are managing to neutralize the efforts that the Russians are trying to make specifically in the Dobropilya direction. First of all, we're talking about the use of a large number of in Kucherivyar, 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 in Kucheriv. So, what happens next? Next, I think we'll see counterattacking actions by the defense forces.
910 Russian occupiers were eliminated on the front over the past day. Thus, according to the General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine, Russia's total combat losses since the start of the full-scale war have almost reached 1,136,000 soldiers. In addition, yesterday, 4 Russian tanks, an armored combat vehicle, and 15 artillery systems were destroyed. 359 operational tactical level drones and 80 units of automotive equipment. Russia. Shares of Russia's largest oil companies, Rosneft and Lukoil, have dropped significantly amid United States sanctions. In 2 days, according to the stock exchange, the combined market capitalization of both companies dropped by more than 400 billion rubles. Rosneft shares fell by 3%, while Lukoil's assets plummeted even more, by 7%. This resulted in losses of more than $3.5 billion. At the same time, experts note that the problems are only just beginning. Rosneft and Lukoil could lose their counterparties and their place in the foreign market. India will almost completely stop importing Russian oil, Bloomberg reports. This decision was made after the United States imposed new restrictions against Rosneft and Lukoil. The heads of leading Indian refineries have already stated that the latest sanctions from Washington essentially make it impossible to continue purchases. Victoria Chistiakina will tell us more.
Following Chinese companies, which suspended purchases of Russian oil after sanctions against Rosneft and Lukoil, Indian refineries are making a similar decision. The Indian corporation Reliance Industries has started actively buying oil from Middle Eastern countries and the United States, Bloomberg reports. The company has purchased several grades of oil from Saudi Arabia, Iraq, Qatar, and the United States. Deliveries are scheduled for December and January.
A representative of Reliance said that the company is currently assessing the impact of various sanctions on the flow of Russian oil and the export of petroleum products to Europe. A company representative stated that oil supply contracts will be adjusted in accordance with changes in market and regulatory conditions. From a Bloomberg publication.
Until recently, Reliance remained the largest importer of Russian oil in India, receiving raw materials under a long-term contract with Rosneft. However, after the imposition of sanctions, the company has been forced to look for new sources of supply. According to sources, in October Reliance purchased at least 10 million barrels of oil on the spot market, mostly Middle Eastern grades. Most of the deals were made after the U.S. restrictions were imposed.
Which is increasingly being financed by the Russian Federation. And it's precisely for that oil, which arrives in India at the ship graveyard, that shadow fleet vessels are being purchased in India. These are old ships that still sail the seas and the Mediterranean, but nevertheless, they deliver Russian oil that is being supplied. And it is supplied to Chinese ports, as well as to the ports of New Delhi.
Since 2022, India has become the largest buyer of Russian oil delivered by sea at a discount. It imported about 1.7 million barrels per day over the course of 9 months in 2025. Analysts note that, against the backdrop of new sanctions, the flow of Russian oil to India could drop sharply. With the exception of supplies to Nayara Energy, which is partially controlled by Rosneft. At the same time, demand for Middle Eastern grades of oil is rising, which has already led to an increase in their prices. In October, India already cut its imports of Russian crude by 50% after talks with the U.S. Washington had been pressuring India for several months to stop buying Russian oil.
Currently, there are 4 large oil refineries operating in India. And these major refineries are under the control of the Russian Federation. At these enterprises, 62% is controlled by a company owned by Gazprom and the Russian Federation. The U.S. is currently taking major steps to prevent Russian oil from entering pipelines in.
Russia is already experiencing a gasoline shortage in many regions. The Federation is on the verge of an energy collapse. The Serbian oil company NIS, which is 55% owned by Gazprom and Gazprom Neft, may have to shut down the country's only oil refinery within a week, according to Reuters, citing sources familiar with the situation. Earlier, due to U.S. sanctions, the Croatian operator Genaf stopped working with NIS, which operates the only pipeline supplying oil to Serbia. The Gazprom subsidiary supplies 80% of Serbia's gasoline and diesel needs, and more than 90% of its aviation kerosene and fuel oil.
To resolve the crisis, representatives of Gazprom Neft, Alexander Dukov, and Russian Deputy Energy Minister Pavel Sorokin flew to Serbia in mid-October. According to Vesernes Novosti, Serbia proposed to buy out the Russian stake in NIS to remove the refinery from under sanctions. The Russian side refused and said they would like to see a buyer. Someone else, for example, the US, according to sources cited by the publication, from an article in the Moscow Times.
After the American leader increased pressure on Putin, the U.S. Senate wants to vote on a bill for large-scale sanctions against Russia. Donald Trump himself believes that the impact of American restrictions on Moscow can be assessed in about 6 months. At the same time, the European Union also adopted its 19th package of sanctions against the Russian Federation. Starting January 1st, 2027, a phased ban on the import of Russian LNG will come into effect. In addition, another 117 vessels have been added to the shadow fleet list used to circumvent oil restrictions. Now their total number has reached 558. Victoria Chistiakina for Freedom TV channel.
This week has demonstrated the unity of the US and Europe in countering Putin. This conviction was expressed by the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, Keir Starmer. He noted that it's not just about direct pressure on the Russian economy, thanks to sanctions, but also about showing how the European Union, the United States, and Britain are coordinating their efforts to support Ukraine.
We are all working with President Trump as one broad coalition to support Ukraine. These are sanctions aimed at Russian oil and gas. This week has seen a truly significant victory, as first we introduced our own restrictions, then President Trump struck at Russian oil giants, and finally the EU adopted its 19th package of sanctions. What matters is the combined impact of these packages.
During the war against Ukraine, Putin is running out of money, soldiers, and ideas, said NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte at the meeting of the Coalition of the Willing. He emphasized that the Kremlin leader has achieved little on the battlefield and pays for even minor gains with hundreds of thousands of Russian soldiers' lives. Rutte added that now is the time to increase pressure on the Russian Federation.
In Ukraine, Putin is achieving marginal gains at a tremendous cost. Hundreds of thousands of Russians are dying because of the dictator's insane war. At the same time, Ukraine is holding on to its courage, and Western support is working. The truth is, Putin is running out of money, ideas, and soldiers. President Trump put it very well: they should stop where they are now. Now is exactly the time to increase the pressure on Russia so that we can achieve a just peace for Ukraine.
Subscribe to UATV English and stay updated on the most important events, top news from Ukraine and all over the world, in-depth analysis, exclusive reports and interviews, all on hand in our channel. Join our community of viewers and stay tuned.